With so many exotics to choose from, there's always fresh builds to make, with some that are whack and some that are wild. So today, let's talk about NEZAREC'S Sin. NEZAREC is a classic, having the same perk since Destiny 2 launched, and similar to how I felt about Nothing Manacles before their crazy change in Renegades, NEZAREC is a bit of a relic of a much different Destiny. Its perk is extremely simple, and comes from a time when things were much slower paced than they are now. If you don't believe me, go back and watch some footage of when D2 released. Things look like they're practically in slow motion compared to what we've got going on now. This stems from a lot of different factors, like Destiny being originally designed around controllers, double primaries offering less firepower, and abilities being more ancillary, but it's clear to see that the entire design philosophy of Red War Destiny and current Destiny is obviously drastically different. Enemies move faster, are more varied in their movesets, and are often far more numerous and powerful than they used to be. We have a lot more tools to deal with those enemies now, but as a result, system mechanics, encounter design, and overall difficulty have been tuned accordingly. This is, of course, a natural progression of the game over its lifespan, but I think it's important to put into context why NEZAREC has the perk that it has and how it affects the way it currently feels. For me, I think it's still a great, well-rounded exotic, but it's certainly hard to ignore just how drastically outclassed it is by our current power levels. Ability energy is always great, and having those abilities interwoven with gunplay is what I think Destiny does best, but in current day content, it doesn't always cut it. With things like the stat system, ability energy and even ability damage isn't very hard to come by right now, and it brings into question for me exactly how much value NEZAREC is really offering. So if you're unfamiliar with NEZAREC, the way it works is that any void kill adds to a timer called Abyssal Extractor, which increases your ability and super regeneration. You can extend this timer up to 20 seconds, and it provides approximately 300% increased grenade and melee energy, and 200% increased super and class energy. One of the biggest benefits of NEZAREC is that this perk works on any subclass so long as you're getting void weapon kills, but void abilities themselves will also add to the timer. The increased regen is pretty substantial, but it doesn't feel insane, which I honestly think is a good thing. As I've mentioned a few times throughout the series, I think Destiny shines brightest when the relationship between your weapons, abilities, and supers all feels balanced, and cooldowns are a fundamental part of that. Abilities are extremely strong right now, but I like that the downtime between charges requires me to focus on gunplay instead, and rewards me for tactically using the abilities that I have when they're available. For me, NEZAREC enhances this feeling of value that I get out of my abilities, as I have to sort of earn them through combat. By playing well through my shooting and positioning, I can stay alive, increasing my buff timer and maximizing my ability output. Every time I earn a grenade back, it's a reward for achieving flow in combat, and building into the strength of those grenades increases that reward further while still feeling like a natural extension of the loop. I think this point is an interesting one, as it stands in contrast to how I feel about the current dominance of ability spam builds, even though NEZAREC sort of falls into a similar category, where Transcendence hands you for free a near infinite, overwhelming amount of ability uptime. NEZAREC weaves it into your gameplay in a way that I think is a lot more natural and elegant. By performing well in combat consistently and synergizing your elements, you're rewarded with increased ability uptime, and those frequent abilities will themselves continue to bolster what NEZAREC is doing. On the other hand, with Prismatic, you just need to focus on getting Transcendence pretty much once, and you can spend the rest of the fight with infinite abilities. Now, I am often a critic of ability spam, as generally speaking, I don't think it's all that healthy for Destiny, but I also just don't think it operates in a fun way. While yes, the abilities are extremely strong and can instantly clear out a room, there's no gameplay element to it for me other than just mashing the abilities over and over. It doesn't feel very fun to use, it certainly isn't challenging to do, and accordingly, it doesn't give me the same sense of reward that something like NEZAREC does. As I've stressed throughout the series, I try to avoid making comparisons though, as each build and each exotic offers something unique, and there's clearly a pretty big difference between a NEZAREC build and a Prismatic one. However, similar to putting NEZAREC's perk into context earlier, the existence of ability spam puts into context why NEZAREC is so outdated and so outclassed. Likely, unless you're as crazy as I am, most players looking to increase their ability uptime will probably turn to Prismatic, as it's not only a far stronger option, but a far easier one to actually implement during gameplay. It also offers a lot more customizability than base subclasses do, and Transcendence itself immediately outshines everything NEZAREC has to offer before you even add in any aspects, fragments, or exotics. So with everything that I've covered so far in mind, I feel like a bit of a lunatic, but I absolutely loved my time with NEZAREC. While it's not exactly powerful, and it certainly isn't flashy in any way, it just felt fantastic to use, and its simplicity was far more a boon to the experience than it was a detriment. Oftentimes, I just want to play Destiny because the game feels good, and I want to shoot just as much as I want to throw abilities, and reducing the amount of hoops I need to jump through is exactly what I'm looking for. NEZAREC offers a great sense of balance in what it does, and admittedly, because its only impact is passive ability energy, it lets the core gameplay elements of Destiny speak for themselves, and proves to me exactly why they're so fun, and why this game still does it for me all these years later. Slowing things down gives you the opportunity to really appreciate all those moving parts, from enemy design to gunplay or even environments, that I would often miss with modern builds. Things right now can happen so fast and you wipe out so many enemies at once, it doesn't really matter how the enemies move or if they take cover or where they throw their grenades, when you can just run up to them with an ability and destroy them. As a result, your movement patterns and your decisions begin to matter less, as it's no longer about working through a problem and just about using as much force as you can. Now, there's nothing wrong with that inherently, as that's purely a playstyle choice at the end of the day, but the problem lies in the disproportionate reward you get for using those kinds of builds. Ability spam is far and away the strongest thing available in the game, while also being one of the easiest things to use, so oftentimes choosing other options can feel like swimming upstream. I think by removing those benchmarks and removing those comparison points, a lot more of the game opens up for me as being fun and viable. Knowing exactly how powerful Prismatic is does shine a light on how quote-unquote weak some options are in comparison, but choosing to ignore that in favor of how much fun those options are, I think things feel a lot better. I know for my playstyle and my personal preferences, I find NEZAREC far more fun to use than I do something like Winter's Guile with Slide Lightning. I want to shoot my guns, I want there to be balance in my kit, and I want to be challenged by the fantastic enemy design in the game, and not just by whether or not I can insta-kill an entire room. I want to have to manage my cooldowns, I want to tactically use my abilities instead of spamming them, and I want to feel that sense of accomplishment from finding the flow of a build and slaying out. NEZAREC completely nails those feelings for me, and while it is a bit old school, I think it's still got style. To quickly give you the specifics on the build, since ability generation was the name of the game, I decided to run this on Void so both my grenade and my melee could activate Abyssal Extractor. For my first aspect, I went with Feed the Void to activate Devour and to get the increased grenade generation, and I paired it with Chaos Accelerant to get an extra grenade charge. I ran it with a Scatter Grenade as they're my favorite of the bunch, and it would give me the option to either charge one up for extra damage on a single target, or quickly toss one out in the middle of a crowd to spread out the damage. For fragments, Echo of Provision increases melee generation when dealing damage with grenades, which is a great pick, as with Devour's grenade generation, you'll get a lot more nades than melees, so this helps to offset that. Next, Echo of Instability grants volatile rounds on grenade kills, which is great for barriers and crowd clearing, and Echo of Persistence will increase the duration of Devour. Finally, I went with Echo of Undermining for orbs from weakened targets, which pairs with Singularity Blade from the Artifact mod, allowing powered melees to weaken enemies. For my armor set, I went with Thriving Survivor, so as I was slaying out with my primary to stack Abyssal Extractors and regen my grenades, I'd activate Room Clearing to increase both my weapon and grenade stat for extra damage on both. For armor mods, I don't think anything is all too necessary. I just recommend using the fonts you need to get your stats in the right place, and possibly firepower to generate additional orbs from your grenades. I wanted to focus my stats on grenades and weapons as they were seeing the most action, and so I could synergize with Thriving Survivor. Since Survivor grants a 40 stat bump to both, I got my weapons to 150 so they'd land at 190 with room clearing, and I got my grenades to about 120 so I could get it to 160 with room clearing, and the rest of the way to 200 with 2 grenade fonts. After that, I got my class, super, and melee stats as close as I could to 100 so I could max out their regen through Abyssal Extractor. Finally, for the Artifact mod, there's a lot of great Void options, including Gravitic Voltaic Charge for an extra armor charge slot, Singularity Blade to weaken with your melees whenever you have Devour, and Void Infestation to spread that weakening. In terms of weapons, I think as long as you're rocking a Void primary or a pseudo primary like Choir of One, you'll be cooking. I wanted to try out High Tyrant with this build, which I thought was a great pick, and I was using Repulsor Brace and Mega Neura on it. I also took Reckless Oracle out for a spin, which I think is an incredible choice with destabilizing rounds and one for all, but if you want to use an exotic, Graviton, Collective, and Choir would all be fantastic choices. I was pretty surprised with this one overall, and while it didn't necessarily knock my socks off, I had an absolute blast during my time with NEZAREC. It's an extremely simple, classic exotic that harkens back to a much different Destiny, and in doing so, highlights just how strong this game's foundations are. are. It makes every part of Void's kit feel so connected and so impactful as you bob and weave to earn that next grenade so you can clear some space, give yourself some breathing room, and fight for that next charge. While you can always hop in a car to get somewhere faster, sometimes it's nice to take a walk instead. NEZAREC is simple, fun, and in my opinion, wild. Thank you so much for watching, hope you enjoyed the video. There's a dim link down below if you want to give this exact build a try, or if you want to use it as the base for your own spin on it. Subscribe to the channel to keep an eye out for more videos soon, and let me know in the comments what you think of NEZAREC'S Sin.